I am Anil Kumar. Welcome to my series on combinatorics. We'll discuss the odd number triangle in this particular video. You can always contact me on my email given here or at the website globalmathinstitute.com. The odd number triangle has only odd numbers arranged as shown in this particular triangle. As you can see, it begins with number 1 and the first row is called row 1. So here we have row number 1 to begin with. In row number 1, we have one element and the value here is 1. And then 3 and 5 are two elements in row number 2. Likewise, we have rows arranged with odd numbers as shown. Now, you need to explore the patterns in this particular triangle. There could be many interesting patterns. Some of them are related to number of elements in any row, sum of any row, position of perfect squares, median of any row, middle two terms of even rows, and the first term of any row. They could be related. So let's look into the patterns. You can also explore them while we look into them. So as you can see, first and foremost, in row number 1, we have only one element. In row number 2, we have 2. And in row number 3, we have 3 elements, correct? So as far as number of elements is concerned, we know this is equal to the row number itself. Now, how about the sum of any row? Well, let's make a table and then look into that part also. So now we'll explore the sum in each row. In the first row, we have only one number, and so the sum is 1. In the second row, we have two numbers, 3 and 5. If you add them, you get the number 8. And then 7, 9, 11, when added, will give you 27. 13, 15, 17, 19 when added will give you 64. Do you notice some pattern here? 1 is 1 cube, 8 is 2 cube, 27 is 3 cube, and 4 cube is 64. So that means what we notice here is that the sum is n cube, correct? So that is the rule which we can check moving forward. So that becomes our rule now. So as a practice question, what you could do is you could calculate sum of numbers in 10th row. It will be 10 cube, correct? Okay, let's move on and look into some other patterns. Now we'll talk about median. Now looking at it, you can see that we can identify perfect squares 1, 9, 25. So these numbers are also right in the middle, right? So these are right in the middle, correct? So in the center, you have the perfect squares. So you can notice here that in this particular triangle, right in the center, we have squares. Of course, the number of elements in odd number of rows are odd numbers, and therefore you have one particular number which is a perfect square. The even numbers, so this is your even number, correct? So in even number of rows, we have two numbers. The mid value here you can observe is 16, which is 4 square, correct? And 4 is also the number of row. So that is the row number 4. So that tells you that if you find the median of every row, it should be a perfect square. So let's actually calculate the median. So for each row, let us calculate the median. For the first row, we have only one number, and the middle value is 1, which is also a perfect square. Second row, 3 and 5. So 3 plus 5 divided by 2 is 4, and 4 is a perfect square. It is 2 square, correct? Then we have 7, 9, 11. The center value 9 is 3 square, which is a perfect square. And then we have 13, 15, 17, and 19, which you add up, it comes to 16, and 16 is also a square. So what we see here is 1 square, we have 2 square, 3 square, 4 square for 4. That means if we have the nth row, then it should be n square, and that becomes the pattern. So the median is a perfect square. Now that gives us more than one rule. One, if we have odd number of rows, then we can see that the middle value is a perfect square. But if there are even numbers, then the center two values are plus and minus of perfect square. So that gives us these two rules, that the middle term of odd number of row is n square, and the middle two terms of even number rows are n square plus 1 and n square minus 1. Correct. So we have n square minus 1 followed by n square plus 1. So as you can see here, 35 and 37. 35 is 36 minus 1, which is 6 square minus 1, and 37 is 6 square plus 1. Center value, as expected, is a perfect square. So that is another important property. So you can now answer this question: what is the middle term of 11th row? Correct. So 11th is an odd number. It should be 11 square, correct, which is 121. Let's move on and take the next example. Well, this time what we have done is we have rearranged our triangle numbers. So do you notice here we have placed them in rows and columns. And here also we can very clearly see the pattern, right? Now let's look into few patterns here. The line which I've drawn here goes through the numbers which are perfect square. Clearly, the numbers which are in the center of the odd number of rows can be seen as the squares 1, 9, and 25. For the other numbers, we will find the median, right? So the median value is a perfect square as shown by this particular line. So the median is always a perfect square. Another pattern which you notice here is about the first term itself. So from 1 we go to 3 and then to 7, 13, 21, 31 and so on. So what do you notice? Well, this pattern is like 1 times 0 plus 1 is 1. 2 times 1 plus 1 is 3. 3 times 2 plus 1 is 7. 4 times 3 plus 1 is 13. So you're getting the first term by multiplying the row number with 1 less than the row number and then by adding 1. So that becomes our rule. And the rule therefore is n times n minus 1 plus 1 is the first term for each row in odd number triangle. Perfect. So here we are seeing a couple of things. One, of course, we can identify the perfect squares where they are placed at the median, right? And also we see that how the first term itself can be calculated, right? Now, one more critical thing is you can actually add the number of elements in each row. First row has one element, 2 has 2, 3 has 3 elements. When you add them, you get these cubes, right? 1 cube, 2 cube, 3 cube, 4 cube, 5, 6 cube. So the pattern is that the sum of the terms are n cube. Now let's have a fresh look at deriving at our result on how do we get the first term. Well, here are two ways to do it. So we'll see. The first term here is 1, then 3, 7, 13, 21, and 31. So when you go from 1 to 3, what are you doing? So going from 1 to 3 is like you're adding 2 to this, correct? And then from 3 to 7, we added 4, correct? So to 3, we added 4. And then from 7 to 13, we added to 7. The number is now added as 6, right? So 2 times 3, that is. And then we have added what? 13 plus 221, right? So this is now equal to 2 times 6 and 8, 2 times 4, which is 2 more than previous, right? So we get 13 plus 8. Now, what you notice here is that every time you are adding twice the previous time added number, right? So in the first case, it was 1 plus 2 times 1, which gives you 3. And then we added 2 times 2, then we added 2 times 3, then we added 2 times 4, which is the number 8, right? So likewise, every time you are adding 2 times and 4 is related with the number itself, which gives you the following number. Perfect. So 2 times n minus 1 is being added, right? So you can see here it was the second row, and in second row we added 2 times 1, correct? So that is how it is going. So adding 2 is 2 times 1. Then adding 4 is 2 times 2. So that is how we are adding these numbers and getting a result. Now that gives you an algebraic expression which can be simplified and whose formula we can find. So now we have the terms as 1 plus 2 times 1 plus 2 times 2 plus 2 times 3 and so on till 2 times n minus 1 for the nth term, right? Now you can take 2 common. Once you take 2 common, then inside, what do we get? Inside we get all the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So 1, 2, 3 to n minus 1. So those are the natural numbers up to n minus 1. And therefore, the sum of those natural numbers will be n times n minus 1 divided by 2. Since we have 2 outside the bracket, these 2's cancel and you are left with 1 plus n times n minus 1, which gives you the formula, which is 1 plus n square minus n. So now we see that the first term can be written as, the formula will be 1 plus n square. So let's rearrange. So you could write this as n square minus n plus 1. So that becomes the formula for the first term. Now, we have seen all the patterns which are very common in this particular odd number triangle. Here is the summary for what we have learned in this video so far. So now we know that the number of elements in any row is n. Sum of any row is n cube, and the position of perfect square is always the median value, and the median of any row is n square. It is a perfect square. The middle two terms for even number will be n square plus minus 1, and the first term formula is n square minus n plus 1, correct? Now here you can verify looking at the third row. So if you look at the third row, we have 3 numbers in it, right? So n is 3. And the sum of this is n cubed, which is 27, right? And the center value is n squared, which is 9. So that is how you could actually get all the results. Now, based on this, here are examination practice questions. I'd like you to now pause the video, answer these questions, and then look into my suggestions. Question number 1. Find the number of terms in the odd number triangle whose sum of all the row elements is 64. Question number 2. The middle value of the row in the odd number triangle is 225. Find the sum of its row elements. And question number 3 is, find the median of the row with the first element as 133. So think about it, answer, and then look into my suggestions. The very first question here is, find the number of terms in the odd number triangle whose sum of all the row elements is 64. So 64 should be equal to what? 64 is sum of all elements in an odd number triangle, right? So sum of all elements in a row is basically n cubed. So from here we can find that n is cube root of 64, which is 4. Now if n is 4, we need to find the number of terms. Number of terms is same as the value of n. So we get the answer 4 in the first case. Second, the middle value of a row is the odd number triangle is 225. And we know middle value has to be a perfect square. So let us do square root of 225 to get the number n, right? So we get the number, and this number is 15. So we get that the middle value of the row should be what? Row number is 15. The middle value will be 15 square, correct? So 15 square is our answer for question number 2. Perfect. Question number 3. Find the median of the row with the first element of 133. Well, if 133 is your first element, then it is an odd row, correct? We are given. The next number has to be a perfect square. So the perfect square, which is more than 133, is 144, correct? So the median of this row with the first element as 133 should be 144. So we can get to the conclusion even without the formula. Does make sense to you, right? So that is how we could do it. The other way is, of course, to use the formula for the first term. Now we also know that the first term is n square minus n plus 1, and that should be equal to 133. So bringing it to the left, we get n square minus n minus 132 equals to 0, which can be factored. N minus 132 is 12 and 1, right? So n minus 12 times n plus 11, correct? So that gives you the answer n equals to 12. N cannot be a negative number, so this is the only valid answer, and that gives you, we need to find the median. Median is n square, right? So in this case, median is equals to n square, and that is 12 square, which is 144. So that becomes our solution to this particular question. Is that clear to you? Perfect. Now let's take real examination question here, which is right there before you. So I'd like you to pause the video, read the question, try to answer this, and then look into my answer. Examine the following pattern of numbers. The last row shown is the fourth row. The middle term of the nth, when n is the odd number of the row, can be found by the formula mn equals to 2n square plus 5. So only when we have odd number of row, in that case there will be odd number of elements, so we'll have exactly one number in the center, whose value is given to you by the formula 2n square plus 5, right? So here is the pattern where we have these numbers 7, 11, 15, 19, 23, 27, 31, 35, 39, and 43. Question is, write the fifth row of the triangle. So fifth row, we can straight away continue with this pattern. So we have 43. So we can now write this. We are adding 4, right? So 27 plus 4, 43 plus 4 is 47. And then we'll again add 4 to this, which is 51. And add 4 will be 55. Add 4 will be 59. And add 4 will be 63. So that is how we are going to get the fifth row. So we are adding by 4. What is the first term of the eighth row? So eighth row, first term, we need to figure out a formula. Now let us try to answer part B, which is what is the first term of the eighth row? So let's take it on a fresh page. So eighth row means this is the first row, which is 7, and let's look into this pattern. Now from 7, it goes added by 4, correct? You get 11. And then we are adding 8. So it is 2 times 4, which is being added. So get 8. And then to the third, we are adding 3 times 4, which is 12. So every time to the number, we are adding 4 more each time. So that is the kind of pattern which we are following. So we began with 7, and then we got 11, and then we have 19, and then we have 31, and in doing so, we added 4 more each time. So one way is that you can go by the number 4 plus 4, correct? You can say plus 4, and then from here you get plus 8 to get to the next number, and then to the next it is plus 12, correct? And then you add 16 to this to get your next number, and then you add likewise you can add 20 to this, and then you can add 24 to the next number, and likewise you can add and go to the eighth term. So here you have the first term, the second term, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. So you can reach the eighth term in this particular fashion by adding these numbers each time. So next time you'll add 28, right? So likewise, you are going to add your numbers to the previous one and you get your result, and that is one way of finding the eighth term. Correct? So that is one way of doing it. The other way is that every time you are doing 4 times something, so you could also consider 4 and then it's a number like 1 plus 2 plus 3, correct, plus so on, plus 7 is the last number. So that means the total number being added is 4 times 7 times 8, right, divided by 2, and this is being added to the original number, which was to begin with 7, right? So we have to keep that in mind. 7 plus that number is being added. So this number is uh, that goes by 2 times. 7 times 8 is 56. We'll multiply that by 2. So let me rewrite this number here. So we get 7 plus 7 2 times 56, correct? Okay. So 7 plus 2 times 56, let's do it here. 56 times 2, 2 times 6 is 12, 2, 1, and you get 7, 10 and 1, 11. And to this we'll add 7, which was the original number. So 119 will be the next number. So this will be 119. So two ways to do it. You can add by 4 more each time and get the number, right? Because 8 is not far. You could do that. Or you could just take 4 common. You could arithmetic series, and up to 7 adding numbers will be 7 times 8 divided by 2. Original number was 7. So 4 times all that is being added. Anyway, so the method is very good if you have to also find the expression for the first term in the nth row. So follow the same process which we have done here. The only thing will be that the last number will be n minus 1, correct? So you're basically adding 7 plus 4 times 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus so on to n minus 1, correct? So that will be 7 plus 4 times, and that will be n minus 1 times n over 2, and this can be simplified uh, and then written as a result. So that goes 2 times. We get 7 plus 2 times n square minus n, you can write, correct? So that becomes your general term for this particular case. So let me rewrite the answer here itself. The nth term will be equal to 7 plus uh, this formula 2n square minus 2n, I can say, right? So we have 2n square minus 2n. That could be the formula for the nth term. And then you can verify your eighth term also from here, substituting n as 8, right? So I hope the concept is clear. So that is how we could actually find a lot of patterns and also practice few questions which could come in examination on this particular topic. I hope it helps you. Feel free to write your comments, share your views, and if you like and subscribe to my videos, that'd be great. Thanks for your time and all the best.